another one of those games that you go into and you go, all right, let's see what you got. And so far, Carolina has shown us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But last night, you looked like, UConn might be in a little bit different class. Like, I think, obviously, Carolina is a world above where they have been at any point in their first 2 seasons at this point under Hubert Davis.
Yes.
I think they've shown some urgency early this season, which is commendable.
Now, I watched the game.
I think UConn there's like another notch there.
Yeah.
And not only that, a lot of times when you cover a team, you're covering state. You care about state. You're following state. You're trying to explain it from state side.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, you're following Carolina. You're trying to explain it from Carolina side. I think you almost on this one, you kind of have to look at the other side and go, oh, UConn was mad at the way that they played against Kansas, and they saw this as an opportunity in a building, by the way, where they were playing for the 3rd time this year.
Yeah.
So that matters too.
Yeah.
But I thought UConn, this was really about UConn and their reaction to the Kansas loss, which they didn't play poorly in. They lost to a really good team on the road.
To your point, when we talked about North Carolina and Tennessee or the North Carolina-Florida State game, that was from a lens of UNC.
Yeah.
What are you about? Statement game for Tennessee, dropping 100 on them. And I'm you're going to hear this a lot this season if you haven't already. I think it's the unofficial motto for Tar Heel basketball 2023-2024. This is a game they would have lost last year, ... Like Florida State's an example of that. I think even though North Carolina didn't win this game, there were moments in the game that you could easily say they would not have done that last year. This gives me optimism as they develop as the season goes on. Now, I watched the entirety of the game, although I missed like the first 5 to 10 minutes because I was wrapping up a level on Pikmin 4. Almost done with that game. I'm gonna beat that game, darn it, before the end of the year. So I caught that game when it looked like UConn was starting to kind of come away with it. And there was a sequence. This is pointing at North Carolina things, the things that you like. There was a sequence there where it was chippy. It was a chippy game throughout, which I love. I want more of this kind of atmosphere in college basketball. Draws people in. And Armando Bacot took a technical foul. It was a weak technical foul, in my opinion. And Armando Bacot said the part that needed to be said to understand what that sequence was about. He said, I don't give a blank, as he was all fired up after a dunk. I forgot who he yammed on, but he said enough in front of an official for the official to give him a tee to kind of calm both sides down. But that was, to me, calculated. If I get the technical, I get the technical. I don't care. It was to send a message, let's freaking go. We might be getting outsized right now. There was rebounding margin issues for North Carolina, but we are not going to back down. And while they didn't complete the task, UConn was still a little bit better towards the end of the half and coming out of the half. You saw where North Carolina was not backing down. I like that. I like the energy. There was not a lot of that last year for the Tar Heels. And again, to follow my own advice, we're not going to make this year's Tar Heel basketball squad about last year's basketball squad. Eventually, we'll graduate from that. So let's talk about some of those things where you're right. Last night really was about UConn. Cam Spencer is going to be the one that gets the attention. 23 points, some big threes. But Alex Caravan and Donovan Klingman exposed some issues for UNC last night. Rebound being a big one.
I'm saying they're not the biggest team in the history of the world.
They're not. And their best lineup is a smaller lineup. And when you leave Armando Bacot out there, if you're not filling it up, he's going to get banged around a little bit. You saw it with the defensive rebounding margin. I think UConn had 32 rebounds last night. Defensive rebounds, where North Carolina only had, I think, 23 last night. And they missed free throws.
Yeah. The way I look at this, we had questions coming into the year about Carolina. The moves that they made in the portal were to add shooters.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ingram was, as we've talked about, an important piece and an upgrade, certainly from Pete Nance. But, Paxton Wojcik and Cormac Ryan were two guys specifically bought in to help elevate their outside shooting. And in this game, obviously, Ryan was off 0 for 6 from 3. Wojcik only played 7 minutes. I don't know what's going on there. I do like that we're seeing more of Seth Trimble, who's not exactly considered a scorer, but I thought he should have played more last year. I'm happy with the way they're using him now. Jalen Withers is a guy from Louisville who's got a lot of minutes. This was not a big bench game for Hubert. This seemed like him relying on 5 and 6 guys here. The question though is do you have enough shooting?
I don't think we know yet.
I think you still have. There's going to be games where guys struggle for sure.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. You mentioned Spencer, a Rutgers transfer. a guy who started his career at Loyola, Maryland.
Well, I heard last
You know
night.
what I mean? Like these schools, and what I mean by the shooting is now RJ Davis is obviously driving the bus for Carolina.
Mhm.
Okay. But you looked at UConn last night, and it's not the old formula of, oh my goodness, like if so and so's not on, and then the big man's not on, then they're going to lose. They were coming in waves. Like they just had more guys.
They did.
They just had more guys who could make shots and make plays, and that's where I'm looking at Carolina going. And we've all seen those Carolina teams before.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, if it's not Wayne Ellington tonight, it's Danny Green.
Right.
And if it ain't Danny Green tonight, it's Ty Lawson. You know what I mean? Like
right.
there was a take turn mentality when you have that much depth, and that's what impressed me about UConn last night. The numbers they have on the wing and at guard, and Elliot Cadeau is another question I have.
I think he's actually played fine. Does he have a scoring touch?
I was going to say at some point though, you can't be Muggsy Bogues. Like you got to score.
Sure.
It can't just be.
He had a couple drives to the basket. He didn't score a lot. There were little flashes here and there, but yeah, right now his primary focus is not to score.
And again, I think his comp is Marcus Page.
I'm with you.
And remember, Marcus Page struggled that first year. So I'm not down on him. I'm just saying they need to pull more out of him, like in games like this.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, fiddle around against some of these ACC opponents, fine. You start getting in, and we'll see this against Kentucky too. That'll be another great challenge. Again, I cannot compliment Carolina enough for their schedule this year.